No, we
idea.
do, and we may not be using it, and so it may be that
Well,
we
vacant city-
get a building to use.
Vacant juvenile hall probably is not an essential facility.
You can't use the jail anyway, because that's where you would wind up doing if you did it wrong.
My thought, I'm not very much interested in the county putting up any of their assets. I mean, I think I could dig in the hole deeper and deeper for us as when the city pulls out down the road. It don't sound good to me.
Okay, the last issue on my report is this issue of whether or not you can make a binding commitment to put your 200 grand up for 15 years. And as I read the law, you cannot, absent a vote of the people. So the commitment that you made really has to be subject to the board appropriating the money each of the 15 years, absent some sort of a vote.
There's another option we have, and that is if indeed the current board wants to commit or use those tobacco settlement funds as an example, is to securitize those payments over the next, from the next 12 years. And by doing that, you basically, you don't get dollar for dollar, but you get a fair amount of dollar for dollar that you, people who buy that get the revenue stream from that, but you get the money all now. And so instead of doling out our share of the, of the $200,000 payment, which is ultimately a 15-year, $3 million commitment by the county for this here, is that we securitize that, take that money, you're gonna have more than $3 million that would be generated by the securitization, and then you just put that entire amount into an account that could be at the disposal of the JPA. So instead of floating a COP or something to build it, we self-financing using that mechanism. And that's another option that I think you should explore as well.
It's much more like an annuity in the sense that we put our tobacco settlement money into an account and pledge that legally.
Yeah.
And then somebody would loan us whatever that present value of that money is.
And I mean, you might get 80 cents on the dollar because they've got to make something out of it for that long haul in terms of the drive. But that was actually proposed 3 or 4 times in several counties.
Hank County built their county administration building.
Several counties have, long ago securitized that, because it was a 25-year revenue stream. We're a good 10, 12 years into it now, so we still have that time left. And so they don't have that annual money coming into their budget, but they had the money to use and provided for whatever public purpose. So that's an option that the present board can do without encumbering a future board and provide the assets. And that, to me, I think would be probably more attractive than Hawkinson building, especially if you're trying to lock the jail.
Okay, that is my outline. I think, the conclusion that I know the board, and I appreciate the direction, thank you, the board understands. We've got $400,000 for the next 15 years, 200 from each party. Part of that money has to be set aside to operate the pool. We don't know what that is. The remaining part of that money is really going to have to pay the debt service necessary, to pay off, to build the pool, to borrow the money to build the pool. And so that debt service, plus whatever the interest rate is going to be the pot of money that we're going to have. And I think we've all made it real clear that is probably not going to build the ultimate pool that the community wants. It's just going to be a start in that.
Well, I think what we're representing to the community is it's going to be a basic facility. So whatever ultimate pool different people have, and you can talk to probably 100 people, and have 100 different people who would have a vision as to what that is. It'll be incumbent upon the community to do whatever investments it wants to do above and beyond. At least it has a platform where they can invest. And there are 2 other revenues that aren't being considered when you look at the $400,000. The $400,000 is basically the base funding. You're going to have revenues from the operating of the pool itself, and if you have the college offering classes, there's going to be revenue generated from that stream. In the past, the old pool was able to generate between 80 and 120,000, but on average, 100,000 was a realistic, and that was with an old pool. And there are a lot of people that really did not like going to the old pool. Hopefully, they'd be more inclined to go to the new pool. So you have that money coming in. And then the other aspect, which has really, to be honest with you, has surprised me in recent months, is the willingness of the community. And Mr. Albaugh has highlighted the story up in Big Valley, and in terms of the fact that the people come together and are capable of raising money to support the pool. It's not something that's sustained, and it's not something you can use to sustain an operation on, but it's there, and people step to the plate. And I think with the kids and their pennies, and I know a lot of people poo-poo that notion, but I think it's rather remarkable that the power of the penny can have the persuasion that it has had. But I tell you, just like the postman, the retired postman that came in and donated 1 million pennies, that was $10,000. And I know Dr. Pratt and the Rotary Club at one time was pursuing and identified, particularly amongst the health professionals, doctors, dentists, other health professionals, allied health physicians, people who were willing to make contributions of $10,000 and $20,000, and they had kind of put together a pool of funds of about $200,000 to $300,000 that would be available. Contractors and others that were willing to donate materials and labor and equipment and stuff. They were trying to put together a pool that would. Not that all that would necessarily be feasible in a public project, but there's nothing that precludes the private sector to make contributions. So in terms of providing funds above and beyond the $400,000, I think to just have this idea that the private sector is not going to put anything in there. We already got $25,000 sitting in the pennies for the pool fund, and there are some people out there that are waiting to see what happens between the city and the county putting this together. But I guarantee you, it would not surprise me that we could see $100,000 to $200,000 that will come into the mix above and beyond what we have. So this JPA, the folks on that board, are going to hopefully have resources like that would be available to them to help put all the pieces together. And then on an ongoing basis, the service clubs of this community, churches and other groups have been really good at going out and providing volunteer projects. Eagle Scouts and their projects, doing different things that add to it. And I could see a lot of amenities that maybe would not be funded by the bare bones pool being put in and be added by the community. At least they have a place where they can do the adding. Now they can't do it because they don't have the base to start with. So there's a lot of private action that will be, I think, forthcoming that will be well beyond the $400,000 a year that we're talking about. And I think we need to build that into the equation as we try to run the numbers and figure out how it's all going to piece together.
All right, so members, the next steps will be for us to finalize this JPA between Jared and I and get it to both the council and the board of supervisors. After you have actually approved that, then the city and the county will have to appoint its members, and then those four will sit and pick the public member, then the JPA will be in effect. They will then it will be essentially out of your hands. At that point, then, they will have to begin the process, for deciding where the pool is going to be, what its ultimate design is going to be based on the amount of revenues, and initiating the financing process.
Well, I tell you, whoever serves on that there shouldn't look at it as being a once-a-month type of a board to sit on. It's going to be one that I could see early on be meeting, if not weekly, every other week, because there's a lot of work that would have to be done. So that's going to be a heavy assignment for whoever takes it on.
Okay, any more questions or?
Thank you. Thank you. Don't try your patience with you. Considerations.
I don't think there's anybody that understands the government like I do. And if there's no water, there's no pool. And I can show you the proof. They're cutting the farmers out, they're cutting the gardeners out, they're cutting everybody out because of the water. And if there's no water, you don't need a pool.
No food, no food, you got no water. Okay, Marty, anything
And
else?
if the court ultimately agrees that by that the counties don't exist, you'll be glad to have that withdrawal.
Yeah. Okay.
Members, three.
I want to thank Mr. Nichols for his work on, working on this, and Jared as well. We're going to be counting on the two of them to make it feasible.
Okay,
Members,
Aaron got one question.
On your draft, in the, under recitals, the residents of Hunter Lake Valley and Lassen County have made it clear to the community that enhanced representative, et cetera. This was part of my complaint, is we're using county for the county money for this community pool. And in this recital, it's going back to prove my point that this is more for Susanville, it's not for the entire county. And you know, the Big Valley has their own recreation district for their pool up there, but yet they're not included in this, but yet the citizens up there are expected to contribute to this as part of the, coming out of the county budget. And so I don't know if they would be, even want to be in on this recreation district, but it ought to be a county, if we're talking community, if this is for the community and the county's being part of it, well, then maybe Big Valley should be part of that, if they so desire, I don't know.
Well,
We're
yeah.
limiting our focus here on this, and it's supposed to be broad-based, and so I think we need to keep it broad, we don't need to keep it narrowed down.
Well, I don't want it-
I mean, I think the way it's written, it'd be legally possible for Big Valley to join it. if they
Yeah,
wanted to.
and I don't think that precludes it, but at the same time, I don't want to see this recital saying the residents of Honey Lake Valley over the objections of the residents of the Big Valley in Lassen County have made.
Right, but I mean, but there's Long Valley, there's Medley
Right.
Plains, there's Westwood, I mean, there's a bunch more areas that we can.
And I have no ownership in the term Honey Lake Valley, it's just the one I came up with, so if somebody likes a better name for this, we can have a contest. Thank you.
Okay.
Three items on the last item of the agenda, Administrator Office report. We had an incident at our county facilities last Friday where one of our employees collapsed in an apparent heart attack. And two of our other employees performed CPR on this individual until the ambulance arrived. We're still sort of investigating the circumstances, but it sounds like two of our employees, their quick action and their training saved the life of their colleague who is now in the hospital over in Lassen. So once we're real certain on all the details, and we're mostly certain on most stuff, we'll probably put something on the agenda to recognize these two people because they really stepped up. It also raises the question, we need to do a better job, and I've already sent an email to Eric Ewing about making sure the ambulances know where all our facilities are, because that apparently was part of the issue. They're not getting there on time. And second, again, when we do this periodically, offer CPR training to all our employees. So could have been a tragic event in terms of death, but it wasn't quite as bad. Last night, somebody set fire to our alcohol and drug facility on Chestnut Street. The city police and the fire department are investigating. The fire was outside the building. There doesn't appear to be any internal damage, I guess, so we know at this point in time. We had to close the building and the community has been notified, and the investigation is underway. Third is that we had understood that we were going to have a Hindu cleric do the invocation today, and for reasons I don't understand, he didn't show. So if that, if he approaches it or whatever, that may or may not happen in the future, but I know that was kind of publicly announced, so that's what happened. The individual just didn't show. And last, Supervisor Wasik wanted to have a conversation with the auditor on the audit for Honey Lake City.
Did you have a specific question?
Yeah, I just thought it would be nice to, maybe we could address for the full board about I know I've been getting calls, and probably others have, about the reason why that the RCD fees are getting put on their tax bill. When we set a date here at the meeting that if the information wasn't gonna go on the tax bill, and so I just wanna, hear from you exactly if in fact everything was in order and all of those steps we talked about at the meeting were met, because
Right.
when they phone, I don't really have anything
Okay. It's my intention to place the Susan River Water Master fees on the tax roll. I did receive an assessment list from Honey Lake RCD before August 10th with the list and with an approved budget. And with the cover letter requesting that be done. There's always room for improvement. It's supposed to be a certification. The letter refers to a certification, but there is not on the assessment list the language that you often see about penalty and perjury, on it. I've spent even this morning reading the Honey Lake RCD minutes and agenda, and I saw that the full board did approve the water master budget, not once, but twice. So I think we're covered there. The government code and the, I think it's the public utility code, both don't recommend that the county and the auditor place the assessment on the tax roll, but it says that we shall. And so that's my intention to do that. I get a lot of questions and complaints and even some threats about my authority to do that, but I feel that I have to, so. And that's, hopefully, they will begin operating a little bit more professionally, get the training they need to operate as a cohesive board. And any questions about that?
You said Susan River, I know that there's more tributaries that have water rights on this.
There are.
Is the Susan River, is that inclusive of all of them, or is it just the water rights?
We
on
have
Susan?
3 water master areas in Lassen County. One's Pitt River, and one is Ash Creek, and then the Susan River. So I think those are 3. Huh?
Long Valley.
There's just those 3. So, and what the territory that they encompass, that's beyond me, I don't know.
So the Susan, that makes.
Susan River takes in.
I haven't had any complaints or controversy over the other 2, and I think it's the 2. Modoc County Ag Commissioner actually manages 1. So, and I think that's Ash Creek. Is that Ash Creek where you are?
Yeah,
Or
that's great.
Big Valley, maybe? I can't remember the names. So, any other questions? If you have calls, you can always refer them to me, and I'll give them the information I have.
On July, just in our, it's in the G8.
Exactly.
item, July 30th, 2013 special meeting minutes, and it has discussion approval of what, this is item B, it would be 5B, discussion/approval of water master budget due to Lassen County Auditor's Office by 8/10, and it had white after it, so I guess I was referring to who was presenting it. The WAC formed a committee and created a water master budget and assessment earlier in the year. Ramsey is concerned about how water is distributed. He feels the report needs work for next year. Willis made a motion to approve the water master budget. Ramsey seconded with reservations, and the motion passed all. So I mean, it was unanimous.
Right.
So
And on
that,
March 27th, they did the same thing.
yeah, and so that was the basis of the transmittal to you. So I guess those, I mean, we realize that there's a lot of stress in that organization, and it's worse than a family beef. And I think, though, that when it comes down to it, those are the actions you have to. And I realize, I get it, there are people who are opposed to something somewhere all the time, but you know, you can't bring the world to a screeching halt just because somebody wants to.
Okay, thanks, Karen. Anything else?
I think in our meeting next week on the 17th, Supervisor Hanson will be back, Supervisor Chapman will be gone. On our meeting on the 24th, Jim and Jack will be back, but we're on a family trip, so we won't have a full board here until October 8th.
No, I might be gone after that.
One week
The
before.
15th. Huh?
Yeah,
So whack it out.
you got a question?
Yes. Thank you, Chairman Brown. I just want to clarify something from Iona McCain. I don't want the conflict of interest regarding the allocation of water on the Honey Lake Resources District. I don't want that to be confused with my conflict of interest with the board being authority with the statement I made regarding the water well on Belfast Road. I know one is groundwater, you know, and well, I didn't want it to be confused with the allocation of the water with the district. And the conflict is with the water district allocation with, I feel, some of the board members have a conflict of interest on it. I want to clarify that. Thank you.
Marty, anything else?
Nothing else, sir.
Okay, any more questions, Lila? Then-
BLM informed me, we had a few words a while back, and BLM informed me that every creek, every river, and every pond belongs to the BLM and the Forest Service, and nobody can bother their water.
Okay. Assume correct. Anything else? Meeting adjourned.